Mr. Schiff, thank you very much for your time and for agreeing to give us this interview.
It's a pleasure.
Uh, Soon we are entering the year of 2014. What can you say about the 2013 regarding U.S.-Armenia relationship?
Well, I think U.S.-Armenia relations continue to be very strong. There's a bedrock of support, which is very bipartisan here in Congress, for a very close relationship with Armenia and with Artsakh. We saw that reflected in the appropriations process where there continued to be strong support. I've been working additionally to try to meet some of the humanitarian needs in Nagorno-Karabakh and also expanding those efforts to focus on some of the problems with mines in the green zone that are continuing to injure people. So there are a lot of remaining challenges, and we had a kind of a stop and start appropriation process having nothing to do with any country in specific and having more to do with our own internal political problems. But the support for Armenia remains very strong.
The main issue with Armenia, I mean, one of the biggest issues with Armenia is the recognition of the Armenian genocide. What has been done during 2013 and what is going to be done in 2014 or during this period before the 100th anniversary of these tragic events?
Well, we continue to press forward in Congress for recognition of the genocide. It has been a very tough struggle for many years to overcome the opposition of the Turkish government and a lot of the defense and State Department establishment that transcends administrations. But we are doing, I think, a very effective job educating the members. There's very little dispute now about the facts of the genocide. I think the members recognize the unalterable facts that 1.5 million people lost their lives in the first genocide of the last century. What we need to do is overcome the political obstacle. And we continue to press the administration to recognize the genocide on its own, in addition to what we're trying to achieve in Congress. But while we make several steps forward and we've been gathering support for the legislation, we also have steps backward. And we had a step backward recently when the administration changed course on the release of the Armenian orphan rug. This was a rug, as you know, that was made by orphans of the genocide and was to be exhibited at the Smithsonian. The White House canceled the agreement to provide the rug, but we are making a request to the administration now for a separate event that I'm hosting on the Hill, where we would like to exhibit the rug, where we'd like to call attention to the circumstances in which the rug was made, and we hope the administration will comply.
So how do you assess the response from the White House regarding the Armenian orphan rug? They said that they cannot provide it for a private event.
Well, it's hard to evaluate. You know, it's plausible that the objection was related to the fact that this was centered around a book signing. It's also very plausible that this had a lot more to do with not wanting to offend Turkey with the exhibition of this rug. But we will put the White House to the test. The event that I have in mind to have here on the Hill, hopefully in January, is one that will be focused on the circumstances in which the rug was made. This was a thank you to the United States presented to President Coolidge for American relief efforts to help the survivors of the genocide. So tailored in that way, there can't be the least objection to the nature of the event. And we will see whether the White House will step up and provide the rug as...
How big is the hope?
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic. But we'll see. You know, I have to say I've been optimistic about other things in the past, only to be disappointed. But I think that the White House will comply. I really can't understand any continuing objection. Well, we hope that we'll be able to invite you to the event that we host, where you'll be able to capture good footage of this rug. It is, you know, it's a very tangible evidence of the genocide, and for that reason, it has power. When you look at this rug, I'm sure you will see the very hand-woven quality of it, made by small hands of these girls that survived, and that there's a power to that.
What can you say about the Syrian Armenians? Not only Armenians, about the Christians also. The situation is becoming worse and worse, and what can be done more to help those people in Syria and in neighboring countries that they resettle?
It is an absolutely awful situation that just seems to continue to get worse. The opposition to the Assad regime is very fractured. Some of it is made up of people who simply wanted a more representative government, who were folks who began this revolution by asking for a greater say, asking for more freedom, only to be met with military force. Other parts of the opposition, though, have become very radicalized. It has become a magnet for jihadists around the world who are flocking to Syria. Those elements are brutal and do not represent the future of Syria. On the government side, you've seen their own share of atrocities, including the use of chemical weapons. The only positive light in all of this has been the progress that's being made to dismantle Syria's chemical weapons capability. That has been going forward really quite well, surprisingly well. Still a lot of obstacles remain to moving those chemicals out of the country in the midst of this war. We do have another peace talk coming up in Geneva, and it's hoped that we can make progress to a negotiated end, which is the only way this is going to come about. Because in addition to the parties fighting on the ground, you have many other nations fighting by proxy in Syria. But as you point out, probably the most vulnerable population of all are the Syrian Christians, many of whom are of Armenian origin. Any kind of discussion on the international level has to involve protection of these minority communities, and particularly the Christians, who are often now being targeted simply because they're Christian. And it's deeply disturbing to see the loss of life, the kidnappings, the ransom, the desecration of Christian places and looting of Christian churches. This is an ancient civilization, and we have to make every effort to protect it. One of the things that I've been doing is I've been pressing the administration to grant parole to about 6,000 families, Syrian, predominantly Christian families, who have family members in the United States who have petitioned, and those petitions to immigrate have been approved. But there's a limit on the quota from Syria. And so we're seeking a humanitarian parole. I was joined by about 70 of my colleagues in writing to the administration, urging this parole. It's something very tangible we can do. We are being very generous in terms of financial support for the refugees, but this is a way to help in an even more personal way by allowing some of these fleeing the violence to come and settle with their families in the United States.
What can you say about the Ukrainians, the Ukrainians joining customs union? And now the demonstrations are going on there, your approach, and do you think that the Ukraine can go back to Europe?
I hope so, and clearly that's the hope of millions of Ukrainians. It was a very abrupt change of course. Ukraine, which had entered into preliminary agreements to integrate with the European Union from an economic point of view, only to make a last-minute and abrupt turn under extraordinary pressure from Russia. Clearly, the Ukrainians are speaking with their feet by marching on the public square, by demanding a change, by demanding the government to step down, by demanding the release of some of the political prisoners. I hope that they're successful, and I hope that for the benefit of the people of Ukraine, that they have integration with Europe. Economically, it's a no-brainer, but I realize the extraordinary leverage that Russia has over the economies of its neighboring countries, and it can really turn the vice, as indeed it appears that it has, both with Ukraine and previously with Armenia as well.
In regard of the Ukraine, the U.S. and EU high officials criticize authorities of the Ukraine for joining the customs union. But when speaking about the Armenian issues regarding this joining customs union, they say that they respect the decision made by the Armenian authorities. So in this respect, what's the difference between the Ukraine and the Armenia?
Well, I think as a policy matter, there's little difference. Both countries would be far better economically integrated with Europe. There may be more focus on Ukraine because Ukraine is such a large country, and they were so close to joining the European Union's economic union. But I think it's equally disappointing that Armenia did not move in the European direction, instead moved to the customs union. There's a recognition, though, I think, with respect to Armenia, that the extraordinary degree of leverage that Russia has, that mighty Russia has relative to Armenia, and the importance of maintaining a good relationship with Russia in the negotiations over Artsakh. So there's so much leverage over Armenia. It's very difficult, I think, for that country to turn down the Russian bear. But in terms of what's ultimately in the best interest of the Armenian people, it would be a much closer economic integration with Europe.
A little bit about Turkey, Armenia-Turkey relations and U.S. role in these relations. Do you think there will be any progress in the coming years?
It's hard to say, and hard to say probably because the internal challenge within Turkey right now will probably dictate a lot of its foreign policy. It will either give leeway or leverage for Turkey to seek some kind of a rapprochement with Armenia, or it will cut in the opposite direction. Erdogan is obviously facing some intense pressure on a host of policies, both internally and vis-a-vis Syria. And how that will manifest itself in terms of the relationship between Turkey and Armenia is hard to predict. But I think we could see some volatility there. We ought to keep pressing both Turkey, Azerbaijan, and others to end the blockade of Armenia, allow Armenia to prosper. And of course, with respect to Turkey, we ought to continue pressing Turkey for its own recognition of the genocide. And to end the crackdown on individuals and journalists and others who have the courage to speak openly about the genocide, which they have criminalized through their Section 301.
And the last question, Congressman, would you like to add anything?
Well, I want to wish all of my Armenian friends, both at home and around the world, a very happy New Year, a very Merry Christmas. I have such great fortune to represent a beautiful, vibrant Armenian community in my district. And I just want to wish everyone all the best in the holiday season.
We wish you the best and happy holidays too.
Thank you very much.